Good evening, everyone. I am Verna Gypsy from Earthkeepers Connect Goa, your host for this evening, the 28th day of the pre-summit webinars leading up to the New Earth Summit in November, the second edition of India's first integrative summit on solutions to our problems in health, food, farming, and the environment. I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists of this evening. Also on behalf of our summit convener, Darryl D'Souza, and our 10 Earthkeeper groups in India and overseas. And we express our gratitude to you for taking out time from your busy schedules to be with us and to share your wisdom so that all watching this webinar and its recording later may understand why we need to protect and also restore our oceans, sea life, and coasts. That's our topic for today, protecting our oceans and coasts. So I will start with introducing our panelists, Darryl D'Souza. His story of healing, about 14 years of sickness within just 1 year of using integrated natural therapies, is a story that has inspired millions across the globe to lead healthier lives. His book, Become Healthier Extinct, on curing chronic illnesses with integrated natural therapies, finds readership in close to 200 countries. Darryl does disease reversal workshops as well as spiritual workshops across India, and he has also served a 5-year term as the Secretary of the World United Doctors and Healers Association. He hosts platforms and events for doctors, healers, and therapists to work together and has curated and convened 4 mind, body, and spirit healing conferences. Darryl is also an organic farmer, an environmentalist, a TEDx speaker, founder of Earthkeepers Connect, ambassador of Vegan Nation, and convener of the New Earth Summit. Over the last 20 years, Darryl has developed a keen interest in soil biology, animal and plant and human biology, marine biology, planetary ecology, sociology, and holistic living, which inspired him to launch the New Earth Summit, now in its second year, as a platform to showcase their integrated and symbiotic functioning. Venkatesh Charloo. Venkatesh Charloo has a bachelor's in commerce and is an instructor certified with the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. A banker by profession, Venkat worked in Hong Kong for 11 years before deciding to quit the rat race and start recreational scuba diving in Goa, India. In November 1995, he joined Barracuda Diving India as a freelance instructor, becoming a partner in 1996 and then taking over the company as a sole proprietor in 1997. He's passionate about marine conservation and founded Coastal Impact with the intention of building awareness about marine ecosystems and motivating people to become divers and ocean ambassadors, as well as to join in to save Goa's precious marine life. He is an SSI Master Instructor and PADI IDC Staff Instructor. He is one of the most highly qualified dive instructors in India and has been diving since the last 30 years. Dr. Kalpana Chaudhary. Dr. Kalpana Chaudhary has a PhD from ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, affiliated to the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute in Kochi, followed by work experience in a prawn farm run by Hindustan Lever Limited. She also worked as a lecturer in the Fisheries College at Veraval. Being a certified technologist for the fisheries exporting companies was her forte. Due to family responsibilities, she turned to her second love, computers training and developing techniques to simplify office practices. which has been her main objective. During the period of COVID-19, she has put in a concerted effort to create awareness on automation of office using Microsoft Excel to over 500 people, using it as a great tool for MIS and reporting as a technique that is now being dispersed. Projects for the same are being taken up with several ICAR and other institutes. Conservation of nature is the requirement of the day, and due to the fisheries background, a keen interest in the mangroves and the fishery success is her preference. So here's our first question to our panelists. How is Goa's sea and its sea life being damaged? And how does it negatively affect our environment? Darryl, would you like to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Werner, for that introduction. From a land person's perspective, first I want to share about what we are doing to contaminate the ocean. So, for example, especially city-based living, is where we are all in, these buildings and concrete jungles, and using so much of packaged food products. This is what we have been speaking on our summit about, that human beings are, not having natural fresh foods and, going towards processed and manufactured foods, which have, a lot of toxins and preservatives and stabilizers and all of that, giving them a lot of chronic illnesses. And after they eat those foods, they of course dump them in the garbage. So you have, and of course that happens in villages also, as more and more supermarkets and malls come up, people go more towards that. So we have a garbage problem that's collecting garbage and then going to various places, and that garbage has also reached, uh, our rivers, and it's going into our seas. That's why practically every day on the Goan beaches, you have a beach cleanup happening. So now the second thing is the city model. It is the sewage system. You see the gray water and the black water. It's all going down into the building, into the pipes, and into the big drainages. And then finally, all of that is coming out into the oceans, or sometimes it's going into the rivers. And the rivers also sometimes are emptying into the ocean. So you have massive contamination. I think that's the majority of contamination that's happening, to the ocean all over, from all the land, it's getting into the ocean. And that has got all of course, contaminants, but it's got oil and grease and all of that besides the garbage. So that oil and grease is going down into your seawater, creating a blanket, and of course, oil floats. So it's creating a film on top, microfilm. It's creating the denser material is creating a blanket on the seabed, covering the sea plankton, and even the ones, of course, that are on top also. So even covering the corals. And from that, we are understanding that more than 60 to 65 or even 70% of oxygen, it comes from these marine plankton, and so that's even more than the land trees. So by putting all this pollution there, we are kind of damaging that entire ecosystem. And comparative to that, what we are trying to do in the model we are promoting for villages is the wonderful, sewage treatment system that every house or every villa can have in Goa, where your gray water and black water is taken and it's recycled, and through a nice feeding mechanism 1 or 2 feet under the ground, all of that is getting absorbed by your plants. So you have free water to your plants that is treated and very nutritious, and it doesn't even go and contaminate your groundwater level or well water level. So this is the kind of future that should happen for the planet, because each of us who's a consumer, and if we are creating any waste, it should be in the area and recycled. So in some of our webinars, we explained how this water is recycled and how we can do rainwater harvesting, and that feeds the groundwater and how that groundwater is picked up on the well. So you have a local ecosystem working in perfection. And if you start using, this is important for every home person, start using natural shampoos, natural body soaps, natural utensil cleaning soaps and all of that. So it becomes all biodegradable and an organic system is operating in place. So the biggest damage to this planet, I think, is this city model when none of these things can happen and all the sewage is coming into the sea. So I think that's the biggest, problem happening on the planet with regards to damaging the sea, water, and sea life. And of course, as our other panelists who will talk more about the specific sea life that is getting affected, so I will leave that for them. But this is, what I think. And once we compromise the ocean and we contaminate it, the ocean also absorbs so much of carbon dioxide. That amount also starts coming down, and we have resultant more carbon dioxide on the planet. So that's my main, message today. That people, every person on the planet, whether you're living in the city, you should understand that that is not a holistic life. For other reasons too about health that we explained in previous webinars, but that even if you live in the village, please look at all these aspects and the videos of the New Earth Summit, which will teach you how to keep, a system local and circular so that it does not create contamination and damage to the other larger ecosystems on the planet. Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl.
Thank you. That was great, Darryl. That was right. Doctor, if you please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Those who are attending this webinar, warm welcome to everyone. You have taken out a lot of your time to listen to this. And I believe that oceans are the most important part of Goa because everybody sees the oceans around them all the time, right? So if we are going to look at oceans, then I would like to introduce oceans as an eye-opener for you to understand what exactly are the oceans to us and what it should be. Okay, so what do the oceans actually mean to us? A treasure hunt. We fish and fish and fish and fish and fish, and we believe that this is stock is never exhausted. We believe that there will be no end to this. But is this the truth? We are already facing this problem. We are not seeing fishes on our plate from our state anymore, right? So why is this happening? What exactly is the cause for this? The first thing, do we think about this? How much to catch? How many of the fishermen are actually told they should be catching this amount? There is a calculation done. There is a sea holding capacity. The scientists are aware about this. They do remote sensing. They know how much fish is there. There should be a calculation that this is the percentage that can be caught. Once that amount is caught, you have to stop so that you allow the rest to grow, to breed, and give you for the next year too. We are facing this problem only because nobody tells us to stop. Nobody tells us what to catch. There is a size that has to be caught. You can't catch the small ones and expect to catch the next year. There are mesh sizes given to the fishermen who go to catch. They don't understand the importance of these mesh sizes. There's a ruthless catch which is going on. Catches of ones which are going to breed, catches of one which are just bred, catches of one which actually should be caught. So it's very, very difficult. You have to understand what to catch. The next, when to catch it. A breeder may be moving towards the mangroves to breed. We catch this fish. How will we get the fish on our plate if we are going to do this? We ought to know. In fact, the government has a good policy of banning the fishing from the 1st of June to 31st of July every year. 61 days of no fishing for two reasons. One, allow the fish to breed. And second, the fishermen need not go into choppy waters and have a problem. So this stops mechanized fishing. There's no trawling. Yeah, but what happens? The mechanized gill netting is still on. The motorized ones are still on. Are we really stopping it, the whole thing? Let's put a full stop to it. No, let's say, no, it's not to be done for 61 days. Ganesh ke time mein everybody becomes veg for 1 week, 1 week, 10 days. So why not? Then where to catch it? Do we go to the mangroves and catch the breeders? No. See, we have to define what we are doing, when we are doing it, where we should do it. Then this whole system where we are finding the missing fish in our plates will be put into track. We need to take some action on that. We need to enlighten our fishermen if they are not aware about this. I'm sure they might be aware about this because they have seen the catches coming down all over the years. But why? What is the reason? May not be something that strikes them. Okay, so this is one of the reasons that our seas are having a problem. The next problem, our seas have become an eyesore. Our beaches, if you go and see, I will give you two examples of beaches. It's pathetic. This is Benolim and Kandolim beaches, right? What are these? Tarballs. I'll give you a close-up of this. Is this a view that you would like to see? I don't think so. I don't think we go to the beach to have a look at this. Our whole state depends upon tourism. People come to see the beaches. Are we going to present a beach like this to them? And I did a study on this, and I have found out that these beaches are having this tarball deposit because of the sea routes. The oil tankers from the Middle East are going to the Southeast Asian countries following these routes. These are the routes that they follow. And on the way, there is some spillage. There might be some washing, some maybe deliberate through, whatever it may be, that gets washed onto our shores. And this is what is a tarball exactly? It's an emulsion. It's an emulsion of oil and water on which microbes act. And then you have the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are smelly, which are sticky. If you walk on the beach, they'll stick to your shoes, right? So that is what we are facing. Now, what happens is from the month of May to the month of October, we are facing this. What NIO says is month of May, we cannot blame the tankers. We need to blame our Bombay highs because they say it comes from there. The rest of the time is from the tankers. So we need to do something to stop this. We cannot continue to bear the load of that tarballs in our beaches. So this is the second thing I'm looking at from the sea's point of view of Goa. The next thing is the water sports. Water sports has become such a rave. Everybody wants to do water sports. So there are so many of them. I have mentioned quite a few of them, including scuba diving. But I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing this. What I'm trying to say is we should be consciously doing this. Take care of the environment and do it. There are a lot of countries which do these, but they take care of the environment and do this. So I think we should consciously do this. Okay. So one of the water sports requires a real mention, and so I have given it a mention, that is a dolphin watch. Dolphin watch is called as a water sport. In what way is it a water sport? You just go into the sea, play some loud music on your boat, go there, find a dolphin and say, I spotted a dolphin. That's not a water sport. You're supposed to actually educate, create an awareness what a dolphin is. Then it would become a more ecotourism than a sport. Unfortunately, according to authorities, it is a water sport. So if these are consciously done, definitely there is no issue. But if there is no consciousness, there's an infrastructure development without people being conscious of the consequences of this, we are going to land up in problems. The next is pollution. I think this is the topic of the day. Pollution is everywhere around us. But what about the seas? The seas also have their own pollutions, right? We have considered the seas as the omniscient bin. Everything goes there. From your single-use plastic to anything that is there in your house goes there. Anything in the factory also goes there. Anything in the farm also goes there. Poor sea doesn't know that it has only a particular capacity. You keep on dumping over there. So what are the different types of pollution you have? The first one is the chemical pollution. So industries are dumping their pollution into the seas. They have the heavy metals. So if you look at bioaccumulations, the bioaccumulation means the organisms from one level in the food chain to the next level has more content of it. If you look at that, it is dangerous for us to consume the marine organisms in a few years' time. We are going to have a heavy load of pollution. Other than this, there is another pollution from the farms. Their fertilizers run off into the waters. Nitrogen in the fertilizers is important for the waters. It is good for the waters, but excess of it. There are algal blooms because of that. The algae just spread like anything. It's called as a red tide. The moment there's a red tide, the oxygen in that area is depleted. That area of water no longer holds marine life. It's called a dead body. I think we should be careful about these. The next is light pollution. Surprising that I am talking about light as a pollution in the waters. But if you see the coastal regions, if you look at the coral reefs, these are the areas where the waters are very shallow. The light plays a very important role on the organisms there. The shallow waters allow the light to penetrate, so it disturbs the queue of the organisms, it disturbs the circadian rhythm of the organisms. Organisms may be hiding from the predators during the night. The light disturbs that, they are caught by the predators. Their breeding cycles change, so the light is a big pollutant. At least in our beaches or coral reef areas, we should take care not to put the lights on late into the night. The next is the sound pollution. Pollution is not only what we hear and see. We can't hear the sound pollution. We are digging oil rigs. We are having all our submarines and everything under the water. They are all the time they are sending out sonar waves. Whales communicate with each other using communicating systems of sound. We are breaking that. We are not allowing them to communicate, or we are causing a disruption in their communication. That spoils their breeding, that spoils their migration, that spoils their communication. Everything is spoiled. So it's not necessary that the sound we hear alone should be a pollutant. The next thing is the plastic pollutant. I think I don't need to touch on this topic. Everybody is aware about this. From the single-use plastic to the smallest microplastics, every place on this earth, not a single meter on the earth exists without a plastic. So it is a big time pollution. Plastics are a pollution and it takes around 600 years to degrade, so it is a bigger issue. And single-use plastics when dumped are very, very hazardous. They look like jellyfish. Many times it has been found that the dolphin stomachs contain a lot of plastics. It is very, very difficult. The next thing is ghost fishing. What is ghost fishing? The trawlers which go into deep waters, or the fishing nets which go into deep waters, sometimes they tear and part of it just gets washed away in the waters and go to the seabeds. See, they are plastic, right? As plastic, they will take 600 years to degrade. But they are at a particular purpose, that is, they are used for fishing. If they are used for fishing, they continue to catch fish even after they have broken away from their nets. This is a big problem. I want to show you all a small video on this. Just watch this. Right? There was a hook on the dolphin and the diver had to take it out. Let me show you another one.
We approached this massive ball of fishing net And in it was a very frantic seal that was completely stuck, as well as a very cold turtle. So 2 animals in one net.
Would we consider this something nice? I think it would hurt all of us if this was happening. The whole time there are lots of animals getting caught in nets which are abandoned in the seas. It's very, very difficult for us to imagine what the organisms go through. So, can we hear this? I think we should start hearing this. There's a cry of help from the organisms, and whether they are you can hear it or no, I think we should take action on this. Thanks everybody. I hope you all become conscious of this.
Thank you, Doctor. I mean, even this brings light to that whale shark which was found on Kalangut Beach, actually Baga. So, with that, I will ask Venkat to share with us.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
There's very little I can add after the presentation by Darryl and Kalpana, but I'll try to add my 2 cents to it, or 2 paisa to it. Yeah. So let me just share the screen. I have not done much in terms of this one, but yeah. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, it's coming on now. Right?
Yeah. Right. So I think one of the questions was, how's Goa's sea life and how's the sea life being damaged? Now, I've been diving in Goa for the last 28 years. And I've seen a lot of changes underwater. Some of it for the good, some of it for the worse, mostly for the worse. Now, a lot of people ask me the question when mining particularly stopped. Everybody I used to meet used to ask me, do you see any change in the sea after mining finished, after it stopped? And unfortunately for them, I used to say, no, not really. Because there are many other factors. You know, mining has been the whipping boy for a long time. It is not that they are not. They have contributed a lot to what is wrong with our oceans today. But the main problem today lies with each and every one of us. Every activity that we do is contributing to the pollution that we are spewing out in one form or the other. Be it plastic, be it global warming, CO2 emissions, methane, whatever you want to call it. Okay, collectively, they are pushing up the temperatures of the water worldwide. It is not just Goa. But people don't realize that the seas are huge, the oceans are vast. But at the same time, they are really, really small. Because what is happening in one place gets to another place. It might not be our problem, but it will become our problem. So we cannot stay in isolation. The bottom line is we are just one small planet. And we are affected by whatever is happening at any part of the world. Look at the recent problem which they had in, I believe, Mauritius, where the tanker ran aground, Japanese tanker, and it just completely destroyed the ecosystem there, which was so pristine and beautiful. And today there is a risk that it can be wiped out forever, you know? So among the problems that we have, I've just listed out what I could quickly think of. One is global warming, of course. The water temperatures are increasing by the day. And for example, now we start our diving season in October. In October, right now, yesterday, in the water, on the surface and underwater, it was 27 degrees centigrade, right? This is normal temperature for this time of the year. But as we go into winter, what we call winter in Goa anyway, which is not very cold, but the water temperature does drop to anywhere between 26 to 25 degrees. Okay. And then as we start going into March, April, and May, which is summer, in May, the temperature can reach 33 to 34 degrees centigrade in the water. So you can actually take your soap and shampoo and go in there and have a nice bath. It is that warm, right? But that is normal. But what happens is that temperature should again come down with the advent of the monsoons. Once the monsoons progress towards September, you get cold upwellings coming up from the deep oceans, which further make the oceans colder. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because yesterday was a fantastic day for me. Because after 5 months of COVID, I was going and diving in the ocean. So it was like I was getting withdrawal symptoms. It's like being on drugs, you know? And to me, that is my drug, to be in the ocean with its inhabitants, with my fishy friends. And I was missing all that. It's not good enough to watch on TV. Trust me. Once you learn and once you start diving, and Darryl is smiling because he's going to be my next victim. So is Kavita. Yeah, and Werner, I think so as well. Yeah. I have to introduce you to the real world of diving, to see the real fish, not in the lab, not in a test tube, not on the screen on TV, right? Because it's a whole different experience. Now, so global warming is, of course, a major, major issue. The temperatures have warmed up by almost 1 degree since post-industrialization period, which is 1920. Now, what is 1 degree? It's no big deal, right? If you are sitting in a room and you find that it is getting a bit warm, all you need to do is turn on that AC and, take it down by 1 or 2 degrees. It's no big deal. But it's not like that in the oceans. Changes in the temperatures and in the global weather patterns have been happening ever since the Earth was born. But now it has reached a stage where it is happening too quickly. It is not slow enough for the animals to cope with it. And that is the problem. Okay? If it had happened over millions of years, no problem. Everything would have coped. But it's not like that anymore. Same way, global warming is also leading to ocean acidification, which is another big issue where the whole pH of the oceans are changing. And that is leading to mass extinction of animals. It is estimated that in a decade, about 1 million species are going to go extinct. That is ridiculous. It's beyond a joke, It does, we watch all these TV series, we watch the news and all that, and we listen to these horrible facts, but it doesn't sink in. 1 minute later, we have thought that is gone, and we are doing something else, and we forget about it. Human activities are the main reason why a lot of the changes are happening. A lot of it has been covered by Darryl already, but I'll very quickly run through it. A lot of even pesticides and fertilizer runoffs are coming from our fields into the lakes, into the rivers, and finally into the oceans. You will be amazed at how much difference it is making today, which you can't see because the oceans or the seas are something which are out of sight and out of mind. What is in front of you, you can see. The garbage at your street corner, you can see. The garbage which is even thrown into the rivers, maybe you can see because it's floating. But what is in the oceans is actually a much bigger problem, much bigger issue. Sewage, again, Darryl mentioned that. But sewage, when it gets into the oceans, has the properties of being able to suck all the oxygen out of the ocean. This is precisely what happened in 1998 when I was diving. And everything below 3 to 4 meters depth was dead. The big GoPro groupers had come up to 3 meters, 2 meters on the shipwreck, which we dive on every day. And they were struggling to breathe. It was a horrible, horrible sight. And on the ocean floor, everything was dead, littered. Octopus, crabs, fish, you name it. And we took the samples of the water from the depth and from the top. We took it to NIO. I gave it to some of my friends who were working at that time in NIO, and they analyzed it. And one of the lady doctors there, Dr. Lata Raghukumar, when she analyzed it and she traced it back to some Slavic country, I forget whether it was Norway or Denmark, in the in the 70s. This is exactly what had happened. And then the result was that we found out that it was because of actually an explosion of algae, which actually cleaned out the oxygen. And that was a direct result of excess sewage in the water, fecal matter. Because particularly in Goa, the old Goan houses never had any sewage systems. They used to just use septic tanks. Now, in the old days, it was okay because populations were lesser and it was not a big problem because of the numbers. But as Darryl correctly said, today a lot of population is shifted to cities, to Mapsa, to Panjim, to Margao, where we are all living in buildings. And that is going directly into the oceans. The big resorts had no facilities for treating the waste, sewage waste. So everything was being flushed out into the oceans directly. And this is the result of that. Okay. Then we have burning and dumping of plastics. I live in a small village in Kitla, in Aldona, and I love it here. It's beautiful. But sometimes I can smell plastic burning. And this is going back to the old times when before plastic was such a menace, everybody used to, the only way they knew of getting rid of plastic was to burn it. And again, it was not a big problem in the old days because of the limited amount of plastic. But today, the picture is very different. If you burn plastic, it is going to affect the ocean, the environment in Australia because of the wind patterns and because of whatever else is happening. So we cannot live with the old systems anymore. We have to change. We have to change ourselves. And that is the biggest challenge today. If I try to go and tell some neighbor down the street, listen, pal, you should not be burning plastics, most likely they turn around and say, "Oi, who are you to tell me? I'm doing what I like to do, which I have been doing for centuries." So it's a question of education. It's a question of making people aware. That is the biggest issue today, that we have to make people aware in a language that they understand, in a language that they don't get intimidated with. And that is the need of the hour. Okay? So tourism and water sports, as Kalpana has correctly said, yes, we are all culprits. A lot of us use motorized craft, including me. I'm sorry to say, we are taking boats to go to the islands, which is 22 kilometers away from Sikerim Jetty, where we leave from. All that is pollution, right? Unfortunately, we don't have a solution for that. We don't have an alternative. In the future, and even today, you can buy an electric car. You can reduce your carbon footprint. But sadly, that is not the case with boats. We don't have boats which run on solar energy, for example. They are coming, but they have not come into the mainstream yet. They have not been, we are not starting to manufacture them on a scale which makes them cost effective, which makes them affordable. So for the time being anyway, we do have the problem of not being able to use anything other than petrol engine boats. Thankfully, till now, about 4 or 5 years ago, we used to use kerosene engines because it was cheaper. And kerosene actually is a even worse pollutant, which a lot of people don't know, than petrol. Now, slowly that has been phased out so that now you can't even get kerosene commercially. And also, people who used to use kerosene for even, for example, cooking, are slowly shifting to gas and slightly more better technology and less polluting products. We can only be subjective in this. We cannot say that, no, you cannot do black and white. You cannot say you have to stop doing this because people need an alternative, right? So ghost nets, which again, Kalpana has touched on, and also fishing. Fishing is putting a very big burden on the seas. It is estimated that there will be more plastic in the oceans than fish by the year 2030 to 2050. That is a ridiculously short period of time. Today, all the big fish have already started disappearing. You cannot get bluefin tuna anymore. It's very hard to catch a marlin. It's very difficult to find all those big predatory fish which were so abundant in the old days that it was never a problem to eat that. Yeah. So as Darryl very correctly said, and I'm only going to expand on that a little bit, there is a website called Know Your Fish. They're also on Instagram. They're also on Facebook. Please look at that. It's an amazing website having been put together by a wonderful team of people. I had them on one of my webinars recently. You can also see that webinar on YouTube. If you type in Coastal Impact under one of our recorded webinars, you can find that. They produce a calendar every month, and that tells you which fish is safe to eat during that period, what is not breeding, what is not a danger to eat at that time for you as well as for the seas. Okay, so it's a very important thing. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, but I would never ask anybody to stop eating fish, because that's a part of your diet, that's a part of what you've grown up with, which is fine. But please do be responsible about what you eat. That's all we ask. Okay, it's very crucial. So one moment, let me go on to the next one. So how can these problems be solved? I think I've answered part of that question, and any ongoing projects. So some of the solutions are, I think we all talk about reusing and recycling. But I personally believe reducing is the key and the most important way to go today. We have all become too greedy. And with websites like Amazon and Flipkart and all these coming, all you have to do is click a button and you can order what you want. But do we really need it? We need to stop, think about what we really need. And if we need that, only then, of course, please go ahead and buy it. But if you're going to be an impulsive buyer and you start clicking on every damn thing that you see, it's going to end up in junk, for sure. You know that, I know that, everybody knows that, right? Think about how long you're going to use a product. Think about the cradle to grave approach. When you're going to buy something, how much of a carbon footprint is that going to cause when you buy that product? Right from the point of raw material all the way to its grave. Is it going to end up in a landfill? Is it going to be recycled? At what cost is it going to be recycled? You have to think about this. Recycling is not a solution, because a lot of energy is used in even recycling, right? So we need to think about these things. And when each and every one thinks about this, that is going to make the difference. Not Darryl by himself, not Kalpana by herself, not Werner, not me. We all have to do it together collectively. Only then we can make a difference. Okay, every drop maketh the ocean, right? You take away that one drop, that ocean is less because of that one drop. You may not notice it, but it is. Okay, so everything like manufacturing, transport, supply chains, disposal, you're buying something from America. It has to get to you either by flight or by ship. Are you factoring that into your cost? That is your carbon footprint. You may be spending 10 rupees to buy it, but actually the cost of that thing is much, much more. Okay? Switching to greener technologies where possible. Today on the internet, you can find incredible number of products which will give you an alternative to what you're already using. Please explore that. Please find alternatives that you can use. And believe me, you will feel good about it. Be careful though. There are a lot of companies out there which are selling rubbish and which they claim to be environmentally friendly. Don't get caught in that trap. Okay? Don't make them richer. You need to do your homework. You need to find out, spend that little bit of time, ask people, survey it, and make sure that what you're buying is not a trap, but it is genuinely what you are setting out to do. On our website, we are actually putting a link to all environmentally friendly products. I'm not saying I am an expert in that. I'm not saying I have tested it and used it, but it's a link so that it gives you one lesser step. We are showing you where you can buy an environmentally friendly toothpaste. We are showing you where you can find biodegradable plastic. Okay? But do that, go to that site and do your homework, and then set about buying things, whatever are environmentally friendly and make a difference. Okay, audit your own actions. We all need to do that. Nobody is perfect, much as we would like to believe it, right? So audit your actions. Today, I'm using a plastic toothbrush. Hey, that's not good. 30 million toothbrushes end up in the ocean every year, right? And that's a major, major problem. So if you buy a bamboo brush, only the bristles will probably be non-biodegradable. You're already reducing your carbon footprint. Simple action by you. Still managing to save your teeth. You're not losing them, right? But you're also saving the environment. So there are many, many small differences we can make. I will tell you in the next slide. So for us, we are doing an ongoing project in trying to transplant coral. In the last 2 years only, I have seen a lot of coral damage in the waters of Goa. They are getting overrun with algal growth, which is stopping them from breathing and which is killing the coral. There is plastic everywhere. That is killing the coral. It's smothering it, right? So these are the things which were troubling me 2 years ago when I discovered that all the coral that I was seeing alive and healthy all these years, but suddenly has started dying and it's not coming back. In May, after COVID started, I sneaked out on my boat and I actually went and transplanted 96 pieces of coral, which were collected from broken pieces of coral on the seafloor, either by dropping carelessly anchors or by surge and natural reasons. But those pieces of coral were still alive. So we picked them up. We had the forestry department permit to do this, just to make clear, because coral nobody should touch. It is a Schedule 1 species. You're not allowed to touch or handle it. Okay, so we did get permission from them. We picked up those pieces of coral. We made metal frames on which we put tiles, flooring tiles, but the other way around, upside down, right? We got special glue, which is imported from abroad and which works underwater. We made this coral pieces into smaller pieces, like 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. We cut those pieces of coral to that underwater so that it should not die when we bring it above. And then we fixed it 4 pieces to every coral, to every tile. And we fixed those tiles using cable ties to these metal frames. And we put them in an area which I hoped would survive, right? So we did that before the monsoons because I wanted to see whether this would survive the monsoon. That was the litmus test. 5 months later, I went down yesterday to disaster. One of the frames had actually gone upside down, probably because of rough seas, rough weather, and it had killed all the coral. But there is hope. There is one more site I have chosen, which was on the north side of the island, which probably would have been sheltered from the southern wind and waves. So I have to go back again in the next few days and find out whether that survived. But that was not the good news. The good news was all the coral that I saw, which was bleached and dead or dying in May, has come back to life. And I literally had tears in my mask, which I had to clear, right? Because I didn't expect it to come down. Because I had heard from some divers and fishermen that this water temperature, which I told you would come up, or rather which would go down in monsoons, had not happened. It had maintained the same temperature, which means what temperature was there in May would have been the same, and which would have not allowed the coral to recover. I'm very, very happy to say they were totally wrong. All the coral has come back. 90% of the coral I saw has come back. There are bleached patches here and there, but I'm very confident that now the water temperatures will drop more in November, December, and January, and all of it will come back and will recover. Okay, so that is what we are looking for. The second project which we did yesterday, we went back and reattached mooring buoys. Now, mooring buoys are something which is what, when you take your boat, instead of throwing the anchor, you can tie off to the mooring buoy and your boat will stay in the same place without having to destroy things with your anchor. So that is one way we can protect the coral and the marine life. Okay, so we have proposed 5 mooring buoys. We had put 3 before the COVID happened, and we had to take off those big drums which float on the surface because of the monsoons. But yesterday we went back and we reattached those 3. And in the next few days, we are going to be attaching 2 more buoys where there is a lot of water sports activities and where we know that the people go and drop anchor. Okay, so we are doing this in conjunction with the forestry department, who has very generously given us permission to do this. And that is another positive thing that we will hope to make a difference with. Marine education campaigns. Every Saturday, every time we have a school that is interested, we do marine education slideshows for them. Okay, and that is a 1-hour slideshow. It is free of charge. I've done it in many schools, usually the less advantaged schools, which are getting very little government funding and which are having problems with finance. In Panjim, in Mapsa, in small little villages, wherever I've managed to get my foothold in. Okay, so we are still doing them. Now, of course, we are doing them online, and I'll be very happy to conduct it for anybody who's interested. If they get in touch with us, I shall be most happy to do it. The more students, the better. And unfortunately, it's in English. I've spent 27 years in Goa, but I'm very ashamed to tell you, I don't know much of Konkani. And what little Konkani I know, you don't want to know. so please forgive me. But I'm very happy if one of you comes forward and translates that material into Konkani so that it can filter down to the grassroots level, so that we can spread the message all over Goa and make this beautiful state more aware of the wealth that we have under the water, which not many Goans are aware of. So that would be a fantastic job if we could spread it to every single school, every college, and every little village in Goa. Okay. We're also doing a lot of other webinars online. Every Saturday, we have a webinar at 7:30 in the evening. Okay, so that goes on. We call presenters from different projects who are doing not only marine, but also terrestrial projects. And we give them an opportunity of presenting their project. They could be in Shillong, they could be in Meghalaya, they could be in Tuticorin. We cover the whole of India, primarily because we want their work to be seen by everybody and to understand how much wonderful work people are doing all over India, so that we are trying to bring it to you to make you aware of it. Okay. Another thing, I'm sorry, I think I'm going over my time, but give me 1 minute. There's something called eDNA, which I want to share with you. eDNA means environmental DNA. Everybody knows what is DNA. If tomorrow I go into the ocean and I take 5 liters of water and I bring it and give it to the scientists like Kalpana, they will use special process and they will distill that water into a small little powder which contains the DNA of every single organism which is in that water in the last 48 hours. How incredible is that? To me, that was magic when I heard about it. Total magic. I can find out a shrimp. I can find out a lobster. I can find out hundreds. There are 120 different types of fish in the sea in Goa. The average Goan only knows the fish which is on his plate. They're not aware of it. But there are more than 120 species of fish, right? I can find out which particular fish were in that water in the last 48 hours. If Darryl was swimming and sinking there, I can have his DNA sample as well, right? I can have DNA of every coral, every sponge, every animal which has been there in that. And I can find that out. So to do a biodiversity study, which is all encompassing in a certain area, this is an amazing way of doing it. So I'm hoping to get funding for this. Unfortunately, because of COVID, everything has gone for a toss. Companies all, especially PSUs, are all funneling their CSR funds into the fighting COVID, which is okay. But I'm hoping to get a small part of it so that I can actually do this. Okay. So this are our contact details. Please get in touch with us. We are on Facebook. We are everywhere, right? So you can get in touch with us if you wish to help, if you want more information, if you want to put us in touch with schools which want us to do our presentation. We are happy to do all that for free. Okay. Now, I have requested Darryl to let me do a presentation for about 20 minutes, which I did on Saturday for TEDx. But unfortunately, TEDx had a boo-boo in their technical glitch, and there is no recorded version of this. So if you want to watch this, you have to ask me. And thank you.
All right. So, Dr. Kalpana, the question being, how can these problems be solved? Do you have any ongoing projects in this regard?
Okay, Varna, actually, I always believe in one thing: charity begins at home. Every one of us has to be aware of this. You, me, we can. There's no blame game in this. We can keep blaming, and nothing will happen. We need to start doing this ourselves. I'm not saying that the government doesn't have a responsibility or government should not be doing this. There are certain things which the government does which we don't follow. There's a mesh size the government says the fishermen don't follow. There might be a lack of awareness. I'm agreeing to that. But then that is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to put in that effort. We are supposed to say that, okay, let's get doing this. So I don't have any ongoing project as such, but this is my message to everybody. Please start it as your level. When you go to the market, go with a bag. How many of us do this? We go to the market for purchasing, knowing very well you want to purchase. You go there and buy a single use plastic roll. Why is that? Very well, you can take that step. That small step makes a lot of difference. Don't throw the garbage. How many of us are consciously aware of not throwing garbage around? They all get washed off. So, like I said, let's all of us be aware that things should happen.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because obviously you're also talking about then the awareness, spreading the awareness to the fishermen, all of that.
Yes.
Yes. So now I'll ask Darryl to share with us.
Yes, thank you, Werner. And I would once again, reiterate on people's personal responsibility because that's something they can do the most about. And will explain my same point earlier, but in little more with little more perspective. And that is whether you live in the city or you live in the village. Okay, please stop having artificially made food or processed foods that have got all of these chemicals and all of these artificial tasting agents, coloring agents, fragrance agents, and then you have a stabilizer, which is a master chemical. So like I said on an earlier webinar, it's a unit of atomic warfare that's happening in the closed container. That's why a stabilizer is there. Because if a stabilizer is not there, these chemicals can cross react along with the food and spoil the whole food. So we are taking such toxic molecular or atomic warfare that's going on, and we open it and we have it, ingest it. Of course, that creates, it's got a benefit, has a lot of free radicals, that rob electrons from my entire digestive system, whether it's the throat, stomach, small intestine, largest intestine, and that creates inflammation is the first mild degree. Then it creates ulcers, then tumors, and then cancer. Okay, so this is the progression of just toxic food within your body. And the option is to eat more fresh foods. Now, many people will say we don't get organic food in the city. Okay, at least eat fresh food on a daily basis. Now, what happens with these packaged foods? You throw all of this trash in your trash can. And what is the source of all these materials? Okay, the Tetra Pak. It's coming from paper, and that's cutting down trees on the planet. It's also got plastic, and that's coming from crude oil, and they are making more holes in the planet. And you got a glass bottle, oh, it's recyclable, but then you're taking taking sand from the riverbeds and the seabeds. Then for the tin, you're mining and again creating holes on the planet. So all of these, this format that it seems we have just sworn not to eat anything real, like God has made, real food for all species on the planet. And we are that one species who have just sworn that we will not touch anything real. So that's really sad. In the bargain, we, damage ourselves, cause a depletion of the resources, all these natural resources. We cause a depletion on the planet, and we increase the price of petrol and, of ore and of metals by doing this. So then, of course, after that is all these factories that run to make this particular format of food that you want to, eat and get cancer. These factories that run, they are pumping out fumes in the air, all effluents into the water, and they are causing a global, air pollution, land pollution, and water pollution. Okay. So whether you're in the city or in the village, please stop having these processed foods. And that could be the biggest thing, I think, contributor. Looking at the entire ecosystem of the planet, I think that's the biggest action a human being can do for their own life, for their own city, their village, the planet, the land, the water, air. Now, the second thing is, and the second aspect is, I said, if you can leave the city and all of these systems and come to the more greener and to the village. That's what I did, 10 years back when I ran away from Mumbai at the top of my, engineering career. I came to Goa to live on the land and follow a more natural lifestyle. And that's, I think, what everybody now, so many of the laborers and all, they've gone back to their villages because they don't have work in the cities, and they've started farming and, doing things. I think more of us, engineers and, even bankers and whatever, marketing people, people who have a consciousness to see that this damage is happening and to rectify it, they are going into all of these spaces. And we've had, quite, I think, 5, 6, 7 examples of this on our webinar of people not from the stream of food and farming and all going over there, bringing science and technology. So I think we need to, some of us will think about it and are qualified. We are qualified in a different stream, but we have at least that, intention, and we've done that kind of work, and we have to do it in another domain, then we can do it. So we should go to the villages and try to set up natural ecosystems, what I spoke of earlier, where you are, so people in the city as well as in the village, you can start using products that are natural, okay, that are without chemicals. So when they go into the pipes in the city and come out in the sea, they are not toxic at least. And people in the village can follow systems that are naturally recycling within their area, and none of that gets into the river or into any piping systems that reach over there. The second thing is that I've not seen it, but all these sewers that come out from the cities and pump directly into the ocean, it seems logical from an engineering perspective and garbage perspective. Why aren't there any kind of chambers, big chambers where we spoke about a sewage treatment system, where the sewage is coming and it's falling into a chamber, heavy things are settling down, and the lighter thing is flowing on the overflow. So why isn't this happening with our city pipes, where there's a chamber where all the garbage goes, all the plastic, all the bottles, everything go, everything settle down, the overflow through some netting can go into the sea. And daily, these garbage people of the city should be coming out and cleaning up all of that and putting it in the, dry recycling plants. So that is one big thing that can happen across all the cities across the world. I'm sure in, the first world countries, they may be doing something like this, but I've not seen anything like this in India. So we should speak to our authorities about such a system. Then finally, I think that, beach, that's the last suggestion I have. If you're at a beach and you've decided to eat food on the beach, at least take a small garbage bag along with you and see that whatever your wrappers and everything are, you put it back in that bag, bring it home and put it in your dustbin, right? So these are small things that we can do, which will make a very, big impact. And finally, it's an appeal to everyone to transition to a healthier lifestyle like I did in 2010. I became a vegetarian in 2010. That means I stopped eating fish and all for better health. Okay. And then I became a vegan in 2013. That means I stopped eggs and honey also. So I don't feed off any other, my food is not the life or the produce of any other living thing on this planet. Reason I did it is for health. And across the world, people are having better health, reversing cancer and so many chronic illnesses, high BP, cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, all of those things by going on a plant food diet. So I know all the story about traditional foods and all that, but because of our traditional foods, this is what I teach about in detail. You can go to my website, Become Healthy or Extinct, or download my book on it, or attend one of my online workshops to reverse these illnesses. And in that, you will understand. India is the diabetic capital of the world and also the leader in cataract operations and probably knee surgery operations too, because of our traditional foods. Okay, so don't think that our traditional foods or what our ancestors did were the right thing. So that is one more appeal where you can leave the fish alone and watch them in aquariums or go down diving. I have been an avid fisherman. Right from the age of 12, I had been a fisherman. And I fished all the northern side, right from, Tirakol, which is the top north end of Goa, till at least till Shinkeri, and I fished up till Panjim also. And I stopped doing that in 2013. So now I love to watch live fish in clear water. That is a sport for me. So, well, that is my what I would like to say and encourage people, to do. And finally, one more point is that switch to organic food. Okay, that is produced from organic farms. Now we all know that it is better for our health, but as Venkatesh also said, a runoff from chemical fertilizers. So why is that happening? I wanted to make it very clear. That is happening because of us, because we are okay with buying commercial produce, right? And as long as we buy that commercial produce and we say, oh, organic is 25% more expensive, this we spoke on another webinar. How if you take it even over a 6-month period or at an annual period, you will see that your doctor's visits, your medicine bills and all of that, will come down. And those of you who have got any of these illnesses, go to my website and look for my health workshop section. And you can attend that workshop and reverse all these illnesses and stop taking all these medicines. So that's and there you will understand a little more about organic and natural food and the benefits of all of that. So having a more organic and healthier diet, even though it's a little more expensive, it will give you longer health and better health benefits. And this is how it helps the ecosystem, right? You start buying more organic and consuming. That means in the food supply chain, right? The content of the commercial food will start dropping. And from that, the amount of what is grown, that is synthetic chemicals, synthetic fertilizers, okay, that will start coming down. And if that is lower, then lesser of that runoff is there into the sea. So that's what people can do, whether in the city or the village, and help this entire system. Because finally, all of this, garbage is landing up in the sea. So it's up to all of us we can clean up the sea right from our homes by what we choose to eat and not to eat. And finally, my contact, you can go to my website. My main website is darryldesouza.com. So please go there. You will first find my website on health, and then you will see the other movements of earth keepers and wellness platforms, organic farming, vegan food transition, and yes, my YouTube channel where I talk about all these things. Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl. So I think now it's just left to Dr. Kalpana to share her contact details. And
Oh, sure, I'll do that.
And one point was, Doctor, you had spoken about dolphin trips. And one interesting thing was somebody from WWF had started her own tours to educate people about dolphins, terra conscious.
Okay.
That was something we discussed. So that's, I think, an interesting effort.
Yeah, but I believe the department still puts it under water sports and not as a ecotourism sport. Like ecotourism or educational or awareness. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it should be looked at the right perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I put in my details.
Sure. Thank you. Our audience is very quiet today.
Oh, no question and answers today? Oh,
yeah.
Yes, so we can give them a chance to put any questions right now when as Venkat will like to show his presentation.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I hope so. So this is about actually the effects of global warming on coral reefs, but it is all interlinked with exactly what we have spoken about. So I hope I don't bore anybody. Let me bring it up. Anybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, we are talking about global warming and it's become a buzzword. Now, I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a diver. I've been diving for over 30 years. And what conservation is actually a big passion for me. And that's why I started doing what I do. And I've been diving and teaching for the last almost 30 years. I started in Hong Kong and then I moved to Goa specifically to start diving. Okay, before that, I had never been to Goa. So it was a big move for me. And today I'll just kind of give you a little bit of information on climate change and what the effects are happening underwater. Yeah. So we'll cover what's climate change in general, and then why are coral reefs important? That's very important to understand why they're important. Effects of climate change in general, and effects of climate change, particularly on coral reefs, and what's being done worldwide to mitigate this problem. Lastly, what can you do personally to solve, at least make a difference in this issue? Okay. So coral reefs are important. Scuba diving, I don't know how many of you have tried it, but to me, it is one of the most amazing and spectacular experiences you can ever imagine. Okay. Coral reefs make up only like 0.1% of the entire planet. And yet they host approximately 25% of all fish. Now when you think about it, there are 40,000 species of fish in the sea, and it is increasing all the time, right? That number. 25% of that is 10,000 different types of fish, and they are only on coral reefs. How mind-blowing is that, right? In just 0.1% of the oceans, okay? Not only that, but they also support tons of other creatures, non-fish, if you want to call it that, like crustaceans, like mollusks, like sea cucumbers, like crabs, shrimps, prawns, you name it, okay? So today, over 500 million humans directly depend on coral reefs for their existence. But I was surprised to hear Darryl say this because not many people know this fact. Everybody thinks that most of our oxygen comes from plants and the forests. It's wrong. Almost 70% of the oxygen that we are breathing actually comes from the oceans. Okay? So I have to catch up with Darryl where he got that little nugget of information, but well done. Yeah. So when you factor that in, you have to remember that each and every one of us actually depends on the ocean for our very survival, directly or indirectly. In fact, directly, because we're breathing that, right? So this is very, very important to remember. And that is more than enough reason for us to, save all the coral reefs that are there and all the oceans, of course. The coral reefs protect us also from tsunamis, from the effects of cyclones, from storms and any with adverse conditions, because they form a barrier between the sea and the shore. They also help us in avoiding erosion, which is a very big problem today because of oceans reacting in a different way than traditionally they have done. They're not following normal patterns anymore. You're having storms in Goa. Last season, at the beginning of the season, we had 3 storms in October. I don't know if anybody remembers. I remember because I could not go out. I couldn't dive. We had not even started our business. Okay. So these are changes which were never there. The Arabian Sea, compared to the Bay of Bengal, for example, is a mill pond. It is the calmest body of water ever, but not anymore. These changes are affecting the Arabian Sea as well. Beaches in Palolem are disappearing because of the sea levels rising, because of the sand eroding and washing away. So livelihoods are at stake. Our entire life is at stake because of this. And coral reefs help to protect that. Okay. So what's climate change and its effects globally, right? So let me move on to the other slide. Climate change is not new. Climate change has been around for millions of years. It has been around since the birth of the earth, right? So what is happening now is that changes are coming too fast and too quickly for life to adapt to it. Okay, for example, if you put a frog in boiling water, I'm not recommending you do that, but if you do, the frog actually will sit in that pot. It will not jump out if you're increasing the temperature slowly. So the body of the frog adapts to the change in temperature and it continues to stay there until it will boil to death, unfortunately, right? And that is exactly what is happening in our oceans. If it was a slow change, animals would have adapted to it. But because the changes are coming so fast, they're not able to adapt and we are facing mass extinction. Okay. So why is it happening? It's because of you, me, Darryl, every human being on the planet. We are responsible for the pollution today on the ocean, in the earth, on the earth, right? Every activity we do, manufacturing, transport, you name it, breathing, everything is contributing to the pollution that you are seeing in the oceans, right? So when at the turn of the century in 1800, there were 1 billion people on this planet. Today, the world population stands at 7.8 billion. And that was at the end of March. With COVID, the population explosion is still coming. A lot of my friends are having babies now, right? So it is going to explode further. According to scientists, the carrying capacity of the Earth is for population is about 9 to 10 billion people. That is the maximum that this Earth can handle. We are expected to hit that target in 2050. We are now in 2020. We are talking about 30 years. It's not a very big amount of time, not a large amount of time. So we're going to get that very quickly. The effect of climate change on coral reefs is drastic. Okay, corals are very non-resilient in some ways because they have a very narrow band of temperature that they tolerate. If it goes below that or above that, you have trouble. Okay, so increase in greenhouse gases has pushed up temperatures by about 1 degree. Like we spoke earlier, 1 degree is not much in the bigger scheme of things, but when you have 1 degree temperature in nature, that makes a lot of difference. Glaciers start melting. They don't go back to their regular pre-melting stage. Earlier also glaciers used to melt. That glacier melt would come into the ocean. It would mix with that. Not a problem. But today, glaciers are melting at a rapid rate. They're melting so fast that they're changing the salinity of the oceans, thereby changing the life in the oceans. Okay, they are changing temperature. They're changing, the climate that we are used to. They're changing the entire weather patterns all over the world, and that is a major no-no. Okay, this has led to serious mass bleaching of the oceans. We used to have mass bleaching earlier as well. We used to have it once in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Now it is happening every few years. Have you all heard about the Great Barrier Reef? Of course you have. It is the largest living creature on the planet. It is 2,000 kilometers long. Okay? It is the only living creature that you can actually see with your naked eye from the moon, from 250 miles away. From the moon. Yeah? And that is dying. It is dying at a rate which has got scientists very worried that it will not recover again in our lifetimes. Okay? So this is what we are leading up to. According to UNESCO, there are 29 coral reefs all over the world which are considered natural heritages, right? All these are in trouble. All these are dying. All these are bleaching. Okay? They are expecting that if it continues to bleach at the current rate, by the year, in another 30 years, etc., all the coral reefs will be gone forever if we don't do something to reverse this trend. Okay, so coral reefs, you have to remember, are the key indicators of the global ecosystem health. Okay, they serve as an early warning system to what's to come, what's yet to come. So if the corals bleach and die, the next thing that will go is the mangroves, the riverine estuaries. All that will disappear forever. Okay. The goal, that is why we really need to protect the coral reefs. Even though you can't see it, there is such a huge disconnect today between us living in the cities and people living in villages even, yeah, to nature, with nature. We have grown so far apart from nature, and that therein lies our problem. So we need to get back closer to nature. So what's being done worldwide to mitigate? I'm sorry, I missed this slide. You can see the beautiful coral, the different shapes, the different patterns, the beauty that is down there, which we are now, this is what is happening now. You can see the before and after photographs of every species of coral. Once it's gone, I'm sorry, it's gone forever. It's not coming back. So we really, really, really need to do something about this. Okay? So what's being done today to mitigate climate change? 196 countries signed an agreement in Paris in 2015 to reverse the effects of global warming. Okay? Do you know the horrible thing for us? We are India. We are number 3 on the biggest polluters on the planet. Yay, we have to give ourselves a pat on our back. First is China, surprising surprise. There are no surprises there. It's the biggest population. Second one is the US. Third one is India, followed by Russia. These four countries together are contributing to 42% of all greenhouse gases being pumped into the atmosphere every year. Just four countries. We hold the future of the earth in our hands. That is so depressing and disgusting. Yeah.
Venkat,
Yes.
would you know one statistic? You
Yes.
know, the number of the population, if you total these four countries, do you know the total population? So India is what, 1.3 or 4 billion, and
It's
China
just
is
increased since you
1.6.
said that.
Sorry?
Sorry, it just went up from that since you said that. I said sorry. Okay, carry on. Yeah.
Yes, I know. You know, the COVID situation is also keeping couples at home, and I'm sure
Exactly.
baby is also going. You know, the count is going higher.
They're getting up to mischief. Yeah. Okay.
So would you know
Yes.
that what is Russia's population and US population?
I think I've got one of the slides which kind of comes to that. Let me
Okay.
see. I don't remember
So
exactly.
we get, yeah. So
Yeah.
by that we can compare it to, you know, the 42% and see
That's
what.
correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We can. Okay. There are a whole lot of amazing organizations, NGOs, marine biologists, people like you and me, who are fighting to address these issues and working tirelessly towards this. Okay. Many of them we don't even know about, but they just put their heads down and they're doing their job. But they need each and every one of us to also do our share of it. Okay. Without that, it's a losing game, losing proposition. Okay. So what can we do as individuals? CO2 emission culprits, like I told you, these are the figures. I don't know if you can see it clearly. China is 28.3%, US 15.2%, India 7.1%. There's a big gap, of course, between us and say US and China, but it's still not a nice situation for us to be in. This is the breakdown of the greenhouse gas contributors. Okay, as you can see, I'm only going to tell you the main figures. Energy production is responsible for 21% of the greenhouse gases. Okay, meat production is 18%. All right, meat production is huge, very, very big. So transportation, which all of us use, 14%. Fossil fuel, just to get it out of the earth, to bring it to fossil to fuel level, is 12%. Agriculture, 12%. Residential, 10%. Manufacturing, 7%. Okay, so these are the big contributors to global warming. Okay, meat production. Darryl was mentioning about this. If you reduce your meat intake by 50%, you are going to be reducing your personal carbon footprint in terms of food by 42%. Why? Because beef and other bovines, which actually eat plant life, grass, etc., generate a lot of methane and also a lot of carbon dioxide by bottom burps. I'm sorry. Okay. So this contributes directly, and that is why the production, meat production, has got a whopping 18% in that pie chart. Okay. So what can we do? Right? Sorry, you were asking about the population. I don't think I have that here with me, but we know the population of India is about 1.4, China is 1.6, 1.7 billion, and US is about 250 to 300 million only.
Wow.
250 million people are generating so much of greenhouse gases and waste. Yeah. So it seems like an insurmountable problem. What can we do as individuals? It sounds too big. Not my problem. Forget it. Let the government handle it, or let somebody else handle it. That's their problem. It's not. We can do small things to actually make the changes in our things. So I have listed out a few underwater, but I would like to tell you a very short story leading on with what Kalpana showed you, that video of the shark being freed. So these are, you know, when I was diving in 1998 in Goa at Grand Island, which is opposite Double M Airport, I came across a dead net, a ghost net, which a fisherman had abandoned because he could not pull it up. It was caught in a net. It was caught in the rocks. There was a blue ringed angel fish, a very beautiful fish, which is about that big. And it was caught in the net and it was dying. So because it was a dead net, generally I don't touch nets because they are the livelihood of the fishermen. But a dead fish net has no value for the fisherman. So I freed that fish and he was so tired, he could not swim away. He just lay in my palm, breathing. After a few seconds, he regained his strength and he swam away. And I just stopped and I watched him and he came back. And I put my hand out like that. And the fish, I promise you, literally rubbed himself against me like that, as if to say thank you. Now, I was not on Feni. I was not on Urak. I promise you that. But this is what happened to me personally, and it changed the way I think. Instead of becoming...
I would just like to tell you one thing.
Sure.
The dolphin video that I showed you, where the diver actually pulls out the hook
Yes.
of the dolphin.
Yes.
If you continue the same video, the
Yeah.
dolphin comes back and thanks the diver.
There are many instances like this. You know, you hit the nail on the head. There are many, many instances like this. So
I
yes.
abridged it because the time was short and I wanted to
Correct.
fit it into that. But the actual video, if you watch on YouTube, it will
Yes.
show you, it comes back and says a thank you.
Yes. It's so awesome, right?
Absolutely.
So what I wanted to say is this is something which is not a one-off. It got me thinking, and it got me to thinking that, look, I'm doing this for a job. I'm doing this to earn money. But something has to be beyond this. And that's what gave birth to Coastal Impact, which is my NGO. And by the way, Kalpana, one of your colleagues, I was doing actually a survey for CMFRI in Nitrani Island in Karnataka and in Goa. And we got into a discussion. You might even know her. Her name is Dr. Oh God, I've forgotten now. It'll come to me, I'll tell you. She's one of our advisors on Coastal Impact. Sujita Thomas, her name is. Okay. She's a very, very good friend of mine, and she's an advisor on Coastal Impact. And we got talking about overfishing, and that's how I said that I want to do something about saving the fish, and I met Darryl today. So together we will do something about it because he's given up fish as well.
Right.
I would like all of you to read a book, which I was recommending to Darryl earlier, which is called What a Fish Knows. It is by a person called Jonathan Balcombe. It is available on the net, and you should buy this and you should read this book. It is absolutely awesome. It will change everything you believe and know about fish. And it will teach you so many new things about fish. You will be shocked. I'll give you one example. Goldfish, which are in the bowl in people's homes, they are known to actually jump out of the water and give a kiss on the cheek of their owner. Did you ever even know this? Like a dog which comes home and wags its tail to show how happy he is to see the owner, the goldfish actually jumps out of the bowl and kisses the owner. Mind blowing, right? It's true. Okay.
Amazing.
So the best thing I can do underwater, which I love, is freeing animals which are caught in dead nets, which are going to die anyway, and which nobody will have a benefit of eating. And I've freed a lot of them. I've freed sharks, I've freed crabs. They seem to actually realize that you're trying to free them. You know, initially when you go near an animal and you try to free them, they get scared and they struggle. But when you very slowly start removing the net and cutting it away, I've known crabs which lift their arms so that I can remove the net from under their shoulder. It's absolutely incredible. And then you free them. So that to me gives so much joy that I think taking a life is so easy. And it might give a hunter momentary joy, but saving something and letting it go It's mind-blowing. And you have to know one thing. When you dive in a particular place again and again, repeatedly, you can spot the individual fish, you can recognize them. There is a fish on the shipwreck which I see every single day when I dive. And I go there and I tap the shipwreck with my finger, and that fish comes up and says hello to me. I feed it nothing. I give it nothing. But that fish comes. And I tell all the people who I'm taking diving that day, I said, you just watch. We'll go to this place and I will tap, and you will see a small little fish, only about that big, called a blenny. And he will come and he will say hello to you. And he does. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. So there is also a movie which has just recently been released on YouTube, and you must see this. It is called My Octopus Teacher. And it's about a guy who used to dive. He used to live right next to the sea in Australia, northern Australia, in some of the roughest seas. And he used to dive every single day. He's free diving. He's not on scuba. He just goes down, duck dives, stays there for a few minutes and comes up. And he made friends with an octopus. And this octopus actually taught him life values, which is mind-blowing. So you have to see this movie. It'll just blow you away. Yeah? Remember the title? My Octopus Teacher. Okay?
Wonderful.
Right. We learn a lot from the sea as well. Every day that I go in the sea teaches me something new. It is the same, I'm sure, for people who are fishermen, who go out. They learn to respect the environment. This is very, very important. You know, whether you are tilling the land, the land also teaches you a lot of things. Nature teaches us a lot of things in general. Okay? We have lived on this planet for 5 million years only. A shark has lived on this planet for 450 million years. It has learned to live with the planet. It has learned to live with its other inhabitants. It has not tried to change it. We are the culprits. We came on this planet and we destroyed and damaged everything. To the extent that today, the whole existence of the planet is being threatened by us. That to me is very, very disturbing. You know, we blame the shark. Everybody's scared of sharks. I've been diving with sharks. I've dived with a wall of sharks. You know, all my body parts are original. No shark ever came and attacked me. Ever. Recently, I was in Maldives in January of this year. I was in the Maldives and I was diving with tiger sharks. Each tiger shark was about 5 to 6 meters long.
Oh.
At least 2,000 kilos. Not a single one of them came and attacked us. And they came really close, believe me, really close. I'm talking about 10 feet, 15 feet away. Okay, so nothing in the ocean or nothing in the world is there to harm us. We are the only ones which are destroying it. So, like I said earlier, since everything in the ocean, under and above, is out of sight, it is also out of mind. And that is the disconnect that we have with the oceans. That's why nobody thinks about saving the coral reefs or the fish, which are disappearing fast. Okay? People generally are not even aware of the magnitude of the problem, because what we see on the surface is 1/10 of the problem. We see plastic floating on the oceans, we think, oh my God. But what has sunk to the bottom and which is releasing microplastics is the big problem today. It is covering the entire bottom of the oceans. If I ask you how high Mount Everest is, some of you might know the answer. It is 8,848 meters high. If I ask you how deep the Grand Canyon is, I don't have a clue about it. But yes, I think it is about 2,500 meters, right? You can take Mount Everest, you can put Grand Canyon on top of it, and you put the whole thing into the deepest part in the ocean called the Marianas Trench, which is 12,000 meters deep. It'll swallow all of Mount Everest, it'll swallow all of Grand Canyon, and it will still have room on top. That is seriously deep. At that depth, scientists have found plastic. Think about it. How damaging that is. And there is life even at that depth. Yeah. So it has become so pervasive today that the scientists have now started saying that there will be more plastic in the oceans in terms of microplastics than all fish put together by the year 2050, which is very, very sad. Okay. Can you even imagine an ocean without fish? It's horrible, right? So the need of the hour today, pardon.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah.
The need of the hour today is education. People need to be educated. People need to be made aware of the problem. A lot of them are not aware. So they continue doing what they're doing, right? So
Yeah.
that's why we need to, this is what we are consuming. And this is what is contributing to the global impact. 36% goes from air conditioners. How many of us, when we walk out of the room, even bother to turn off the air conditioner? 21% is contributed by water heaters that we are using for having a shower or having a shave. Do you turn off your water heater after you're done with it? That is still consuming power, right? 18% from refrigerators. Do you close the door of the refrigerator when you're done? Or are you using it as an AC? Keeping it open, right? 11% from TVs. You keep the TV on standby. You keep your computer on standby when you're going to sleep. That is still consuming power. Turn it off, please. Turn off the switch as well. If you leave the switch on, you can see a red light. That is still power being consumed, right? So that is the bare minimum that you can do to make a difference. Turn off everything that you're not using, okay? 11 things you can do to mitigate climate change. What is on top of the list? Have one child lesser. It contributes to 58.6% of emission saving. So all those in COVID times who are still thinking of procreating, please stop. Please don't have any more children. Save the planet. Adopt a child. There are many children out there who need you, right? Don't look at the caste, the creed, the religion. Just adopt a child and you'll make the world a better place to live in. All the others are listed below. I won't bother reading that. But you can see the high impact areas. You can see the moderate impact and the low impact ones, right? So please start doing this in your life so that you can actually make a change. Okay. I'm going to come to the end of the presentation. Thankfully for everybody, I can see everybody breathing a sigh of relief by a few quotes. Yeah. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. This was a famous quote by a lady called Margaret Mead, who's an American anthropologist. Okay. So I think we need to stop and think about this. When you leave this presentation and when you're done with this webinar, please don't forget everything that has been discussed and brought to you by all the people. Another quote by a Scottish town planner and social activist called Patrick Getz.
Venkat, we'll have to move to the questions. There's a few which came up in between.
It's done. I got one more and then we are done. I can't skip the next one. It's very, very important. Gandhi, you can't cut him off, right? He said, be the change that you wish to see in the world today. Very quickly, a very small story. How did he think of this? People used to go and meet him at the open sabhas, right? And when one mother went to him and told him, please advise my son, he respects you a lot, tell him to stop eating sugar. Gandhi thought about it and said, come back after 2 weeks. The mother said, what? Anyway, she came back after 2 weeks, asked the same question. And Gandhi advised the son, please don't eat this, otherwise you will have heart disease, BP, etc. Then you have to go to Darryl for advice, right? But the mother said, why did you wait 2 weeks to say this? Gandhi said, 2 weeks ago, I was also eating a lot of sweets. So I had to stop. I needed 2 weeks to stop doing this before I could advise your son, right? That was only right. Otherwise, I would have been telling him what I'm not following. So thank you. I'm sorry I cut into your time. These are our contact details once again. And
yeah, the main thing is the DNA. First question was want to know more about the DNA you mentioned because that was very interesting.
okay.
So
What would you like to know?
What and how is it done?
You basically select water in a clean container. It has to be so clean that, for example, imagine taking a 2-liter bottle of Bisleri, transferring all that into another container and using that same bottle to take it down at whatever depth you're going to get the sample from, or even from the surface. And then you distill that into a DNA by a certain procedure, by adding certain chemicals. Or, I'm not a scientist, like I said, but there are certain things that will extract the DNA and make it into a powder form. And then that is taken to a lab where they use very complicated instruments to remove, and they actually add things to extract the agents of the actual DNA from every sample. There are parameters that you need to give them. For example, you can say that, okay, I know that there are sharks in these waters. There might be, let's say, for example, a nurse shark, and they can confirm to you whether that is in this water or not. Because there's a massive database of DNA, which is on the web. And they use that to match it. So every DNA, for example, if I took one of your DNAs and you were in the water swimming that day, I can actually say, hey, Werner, you were swimming in that water yesterday in this place in Sikarim or wherever, or at the island.
So
Isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah.
It's amazing technology. And it was very primitive. It only started about 10, 12 years ago.
Oh.
But today it is making progress in such leaps and bounds that all those shortcomings and limitations that existed 10 years ago in this process are slowly being perfected and becoming better and better and better.
Venkat, I just did a Google search in between about those population statistics, and it turns out India is 1.4, China is 1.6,
right.
USA, at least it's showing of 2019, it's showing 0.3 billion, okay? And Russia is showing 0.15 billion.
Jesus Christ.
So I total all of that and it's coming to 3.45 billion.
Which is less than, which is what? Almost a third of the entire.
Yeah, so I divided that by 7.8 billion and it's coming to 44%.
Okay, so 44% is consuming 45%.
Yeah, so 44% of population and your statistic was 42% of pollution. So it's really matching, right? But in your, I don't remember that chart of yours whether it was giving the individual pollution of those countries. Was your chart giving that?
Yes, emissions. Yeah.
Yeah, the
CO2 emissions.
So could you tell us that, from the chart, it's on your laptop. If you just go back to your presentation, could you tell us the percentage of this, how much pollution Russia was doing and USA?
Even India for that matter, Darryl, it would make a
China
lot of
is 28.3%. America is 15.2%. India is 7.1%. Russia is 4.9%.
Okay, lovely.
But so collectively,
we'll have that, this whole video is getting recorded. So we'll have that chart in the recording.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I can also send this presentation to whoever wants it. It's not under copyright or anything like that.
Wonderful. I'd like to have it. Thank you.
Yes. So the next question quickly is about plankton. How do plankton produce so much of oxygen?
I guess the person is talking about depleting of oxygen more than creating the oxygen, I think.
Okay.
Because I guess I talked about it depleting the oxygen in the water.
Okay. So the converse is that so marine plankton is growing, everywhere. Now you have to see, especially the first statistic is how much of the earth is covered with ocean. Okay, so you'll get that statistic first. It's
71%.
Sorry?
71%.
Yes, so 71%. So that's the first statistic. Now, out of that 71%, how much is shallow water? Or I'm not saying just 5, 10, 15 feet. Sun rays go up to how many feet? Venkat may know.
Easily 30, 40 meters. No problem.
Yeah, 30, 40 meters. So everything from from the seashore, of course, seashore's got sand, but the places that Venkat is talking about, all the coral reefs and all of that, right? They all have, besides the coral, there is all, there are plants. So
Yes.
they are all doing photosynthesis,
Correct.
right? And all so up to 35 meters all across the planet, whatever ocean is there, that much surface is there for this marine plankton to grow. And some of the plankton are even floating, right? So all of the time, as soon as the sun comes up, they are doing photosynthesis, okay, and they are making this oxygen, and the oxygen actually gets trapped in the seawater, and it slowly comes. So there's a differential between the air and the sea, and when it's rarer on top, then what is here, it's like osmosis. Then that oxygen starts releasing. So that's how the marine plankton all over the planet, they will start growing anywhere which is virgin and not touched. We will go and dredge all of these places and we, kill their life. And of course, all the sewers that are going into the sea and polluting that, all marine life that's on the floor is going to die, right? So that's how much of oxygen is created by by this much area of plankton and other, green and living kind of
You
plants.
have just witnessed. You have just witnessed the marriage of Darryl the engineer with Darryl the environmentalist. Congratulations.
Thanks, and thank you, Venkat. And I want to share one other statistic that people have not understood, and I'm writing it in the next edition of my book. Okay. And this is something because the picture is in my head of fish where the Eskimos live. Okay. They are eating the algae. Okay. And the green thing. So whatever sunlight comes at that area, little of it, goes even through thin thickness of snow, it goes inside. Sunlight is going there, the algae is eating up. So there's a lot of algae and all over there. So what happens is this fish goes on eating little algae all the time. And once it gets to a certain size, one Eskimo just goes and picks it up and eats it. Okay. So that fish has taken, about 1, 2, 3 years of food inside. And the reason I'm giving this is because all food on the planet is made by plants. Okay. Uh, so that's what the vegetarian animals eat it. Then the non-vegetarian animals, they eat the vegetarian animals. But none of the animals are not human beings. We don't make food. Okay. Plants do it. They take the soil from the earth or the water from the sea. That's one extension of theirs, which is roots. The other extension is they are taking sunlight. And if it's a land plant, it's taking air and it's taking sunlight. So they bring both these together and they make food. Okay, so where will you see the most of this food? It will be on the equators where the sunlight is a lot. Okay, so actually on this planet, population should be living more towards this because plants make food. As you go away from the equator and you go to the poles, you don't have any of these grains and fruits and all of these things. You will just have smaller versions of plants. And now what we have, human beings, because of whatever conditions, the equators are too polluted or they're too hot, we'll go to the poles, and people are going and staying in Canada and colder places. We cannot be logically wondering why they're meat eaters. You see, in those places, there are no plants growing to give daily food to all these animals that can go and graze over there. So these guys are importing that's what I'm saying. On this planet, from top to down, plants are creating food and they're creating food here, right? So you can expect vegetarian people to be here. And when a person on the poles, up and down, they cannot normally live a full vegetarian life. They are buying meats that are made by animals eating in this lower plane. So you see
Also, I think,
it?
Darryl, if I can just add one thing to that, I think it's a corollary, is the population shift is also the same. You have maximum population around the pole, around the equator. And
Yeah.
thinning out as you go, into more inhospitable climes, if you want to call it that.
Right. So I'm making this point because, that's why. So people on the northern and on the very south, of the planet, naturally are going to be eating meats, and they think, oh, meat is the natural diet.
Yeah.
No, meat is not the natural diet. It's this situation and the whole thing that has gone on for centuries that give us this impression. But I just wanted to give you that the only food that is created at the poles under under the ice with these all algae and whether it's freshwater,
Krill.
yeah, like whatever spirulina and all of that, whether it's freshwater or saltwater, it's all created by these micro plants, and there's a little bit of oxygen happening there also.
There, of course.
All right. So this is really very interesting, and of course, a wake up for everybody. And this brings us to the end of today's webinar. Tomorrow's webinar will be on mining in Goa. So with that, I would like to thank all our panelists, Dr. Kalpana, Mr. Venkat, and Darryl for being with us and sharing their wisdom. And with that, I wish everyone a good night.